Hello, and today I am joined by Rod Thornley, who is soft tissue therapist. So, Rod, I've come across you a couple of times when you, in your previous roles, but I'm looking forward to finding out a bit more about you. So, thank you for joining.
No problem. Nice to meet you. Nice to have a chat with you.
No problem. So, yes, you've been requested by a couple of people, so don't feel the pressure that you've got to come up with any really, fascinating stories. But I'm sure we will do anyway.
I've got a few. I don't think for public viewing, though, you know what I mean? But I've got some good ones.
So, Rod, like, where are you from originally?
So I'm a Salford lad, raised in Salford with my brother and my sister. Big United fans back in the day. And my brother ended up playing for him magically, you know what I mean? And we just always were in and around football then from there.
So yeah, I remember your brother, really good player.
Yeah.
And like, but in terms of you guys growing up, then was football, was that something that you were just doing all day in, day out?
Well, I mean, I was always into my computers as well. I was a geek and the old ZX Spectrum and all that sort of stuff. But when you've got a brother who's 1, 2 years older, and we were both quite decent at the game, we always played football in the garden all the time. So, yeah, we smashed a few windows and a few glass houses over the years, yeah.
And so, like, how quickly did it become apparent then? Like, United had a massive, really strong youth setup that was probably coming through around about that time. So, what was that like then in terms of the prospect of that happening? Was the process? Were you? How involved were you in it? And
So you know what? I wasn't involved in it in any shape or form. And the first I think I really knew of it, I've come home from school, I think it was a Friday afternoon. And so Alex is sat in my front room with Brian Kidd. And I've walked past the window and I've seen him gone, oh my God, that's Man United's manager. What's he doing in my house? And at the time, my brother was at City. And he was playing it as an under 14 or under 15 at City. And well, basically, Man United snapped him up from them.
Right. So that wasn't something that was anyone in the family expecting that?
Well, obviously, my mum and dad had they've been having the chats and stuff. But yeah, it was surreal, weird. Like, but that's what it was. And Ben ended up. I mean, he spent 8 years playing for Man United. He made his debut when he was 18, and I think the last game was when he was 23 for him. So yeah, he was there quite a while.
And then in terms of what you were doing at that time, in terms of like where were you playing? Because you were a decent player as well.
So I crazy this really, but I was playing like obviously just Sunday football until I was like 13 or 14, and then my team disbanded, and I stopped playing football, and ended up traveling around the country watching my brother. So I didn't find myself a club, and my mum and dad didn't really push me to get a club because I think it was a bit inconvenient because they were following Ben everywhere. And I ended up just traveling all around the country. So that the really important years of a footballer where you've got clubs looking at you and picking you up, I missed them. So I didn't play football during that time, only for my school, and that's it. And I actually didn't start playing football again until I was 17 in the local youth league. And then from there, I went into non-league after that.
It's
so
crazy,
I missed the really important years. Yeah, it really is. It is one of them you think what could have been like, but I mean, I did have offers from professional clubs into like 8 years later when I was 23, 24. But by then I'd always started working for Man United and started working for England. So I couldn't really take that plunge.
Right. Yeah. So how do you see it then? Because you've got that extreme where you've lost out maybe, but then you see it now where kids are getting picked up at like before they're even 10, like younger than that.
I mean, it is ridiculous the age that the kids are getting picked up at, and if we're going to go into it properly, we have to mention money and the age some of these kids that are actually getting through into 16, 17 now on filthy amounts of money, and most of them will actually never step foot on the first team football pitch. And it's just hard watching these kids do that, especially because they become entitled because they've got this money and they don't think they have to work hard for it. Whereas back in the day when my brother and that sort of, and the Giggses and that lot, they didn't get massive money, but they knew how to work hard, and the work ethic was amazing. Now, yeah, there's obviously players out there now that they've still got a great work ethic, but I think if you're handing a kid at Chelsea or at City at 16 years old 10, 15 grand a week, they're not going to work as hard as someone who's on £250 a week. You know what I mean? Because they'll want it more. I just find that I found that especially over the years at Man United, the ones who were coming in on the bigger money, yeah, they're supposed to be the bigger talent, but they didn't have that hunger.
Yeah, no, it does seem absolutely crazy now. Like you see, even like going out and playing, because I'm probably similar age group to you in that, and like used to go out and play all the time, and even the players that were a decent level, like Clint Hill was in my school, and he was playing with us all the time, and then yeah, he goes on to play in the Premier League and so on. But now it's just a complete. You wouldn't even get any sniff of that sort of thing now.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so in terms of like you then so like for when you what happened to you then? What was your career path then? So you're following your brother, but what were you doing at the time?
I literally, I'm not gonna lie, I was a bum. Like I went to college, was hating it. I didn't like school. Went to college, didn't enjoy it. Like learning wasn't my thing. I wasn't thick. I was intelligent. I was quite a bright student, but I just didn't want to do it. And I wasn't bone idleness. I would rather have got money and went out and been able to enjoy my life. So I quit college and went to started working in local leisure centre as a lifeguard. And from there, I did that for a few years. And then by chance, I mean, obviously with my brother being in class of 92, I knew very well the players like Keith Gillespie, Gary Neville, Phil Neville. They always used to go out together as a group. Bex as well with Chris Casper. And because we had quite a sizable house back in Salford, so I knew all these lads quite well. And then when Man United opened Carrington's training centre in 2000, they had a pool there. And out of the blue, I got a phone call from Rob Swire, the head physio. And he just said, would you like to come down and be the lifeguard? Now, I was on a 39-hour week working for local leisure centres. And he just said, like, we'll give you a couple of hours a day. So I took the gamble, quit my job and went there. And honestly, within 4 or 5 weeks, Robert said to me, we haven't actually got, as Man United, a qualified masseur. So can we train you up as one? You seem to get on well with the players, you know them all. And how about doing that? I was like, 100%, I'm not going to turn that down. So they sent me off down to Cardiff. I did it was about a year-long course down in Cardiff. And the rest is history. Like, worked there ever since until 3 years ago.
So what was that like then going into that environment? I know you knew all these people, but was that something still really different to you that you were in there with, Ferguson?
You know what? It was weird because for Joe Bloggs going in there, it'd be like, wow, it's Man United. But I've been to Christmas parties with these lads. I'd like I say, Sir Alex was at my house. So the first day when I walked in there and walked straight face to face with Sir Alex, he asked me how my mum was, and it wasn't even like what you doing it. It was just like a normal chat, you know, and it was just like I just fit straight in and just got on with it, and the lads just accepted me, and it was a dream, really. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean that's what has always seemed to be like. Who's the receptionist? She's been there literally every single time I was there.
Kath. Yeah, Kath's been there about 60 years now. She just got a special award by the I don't know if it was the managers or the Premier League or someone. She's got a really big award down in London about 3 months ago, Kath, because she's been there since she was like 16 or 17, and she's about 80 now, Kath. She's been there years.
It is mental. I mean, but the club really does seem to have that family feel. It certainly does with that now.
It did do. It did. I'll be honest with you. It did have that family feel for a long, long time. There was a big change when Sir Alex left, and many people put it down to Sir Alex, but I think it was a lot down to David Gill, and it was a big family club, and he promoted that and was happy for that all the time, but it then started becoming a business, and money was like, and the Glazers had been there 5 or 6 years by then, but then it was like, I think the Glazers saw it as the main man's he's gone, and he can't have his finger on the pulse anymore, so we can really start to do what we want. And I've got no problems with the Glazers. They take money out of the club because that's what they bought it for. And it's an investment for them. But it very soon became very human resources led, very marketing led, and it quickly stopped becoming in my eyes, stopped becoming a football club.
And was that something that you actively could see that progressively happening, or?
Yeah, I could see it happening. Yeah, you could see it happening. And just little things like, I mean, not as if we. Can I swear? No, I'm not going to swear. I don't have to swear. Not as if we. I can't think of the words without swearing.
You can do. It's fine by me.
Not that we took the piss, but things like your minibar in your hotel when you went away. All of a sudden, one day, that was it, empty. There was nothing in it. So because they didn't want you to take that Coke out the fridge because it cost the club money, or that Snicker because it cost the club money. So they just emptied the minibar so no one could have a snack. Little things like that, which in the grand scheme of things aren't massive, but obviously if you've got 50 travelling staff and you're taking them out of everyone's room and no one's having it, you must be saving yourself a little bit of money here and there, and that's the way they worked, and it just became all about money. And if you weren't a player, you weren't getting any of it because it was all going to the players, everything that could do.
Yeah, that's bizarre, isn't it? So is that standard across the board, or was it like?
I think that's now become standard. Like I think other clubs do it now. Yeah, I think. Yeah, and I think if you speak to hotel chains, they have it as part of their remit that they have to remove everything out of every minibar before the teams come in. Yeah.
Yeah, it does kind of take out the personal nature of it.
Yeah. I'm not saying everyone does it, but like Man United did, yeah, and it was there must have been someone at the top saying, "Well, hang on, why are we paying for him to have a Coke at 12 o'clock at night?" Yeah, that's what it was, wasn't it? It was what it was.
So in terms of that, you've got into United around about like the early sort of noughties period, which was, in my opinion, I absolutely loved that era. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I did too, yeah.
What was that like then? Because you're going in, you've got like Man U, probably the biggest club in the world around that time, just won the European Cup. Like, what was that like around? You'd be like, you said how low key it was to some extent, but you've obviously got some of the biggest stars in the world, literally.
Yeah, I mean, the dressing room then. I mean, it was nothing like what it is now, as in the actual size of the dressing room. It was a small room, and you had the lads were virtually on top of each other. Plus, we had trying to fit 2 massage beds in there as well, a physio bed and a massage bed, and it was mad. But like the camaraderie back then was brilliant. Honestly, it was brilliant. You've got so many loud people in there. Gary Neville for one, you couldn't shut Gary up, but he was brilliant for a dressing room, absolutely brilliant. And his brother was in a different way as well, but like you have like Keane was a strong voice, but funny, and at times Keane was hilarious, and him and Nicky Butt used to bounce off each other. Bex used to be the brunt of a few jokes. Phil Neville used to be the brunt of a few jokes, but like it was a good dressing room. And back then there was probably only about, I would say, about 17, 18 players in there, and then you'd have the likes of Wes Brown coming in and out, and because he was still part of the kids setup, he was still young Wes. Yeah, but they were a great bunch of lads, and the team. What do I say? I want to say teamwork, but like the team spirit was fantastic, and they promoted it as much as they could. And I'm not saying a drinking club or a drinking culture anytime, but if they could go out for a drink at Christmas, they would do that, and they would do it as a team, and everyone would be included. And that changed massively over the years. You'd find the foreigners come in, the English mentality of let's go to the pub and have a few drinks. They didn't get that, so that would sort of change the way team spirit was, once that core of English players sort of like left the dressing room, you'd lose that. You go on and the lads are going a night out, and where's the Spanish lads? 7 are missing. They're not here, not coming, and so that togetherness was never really the same, which showed on the pitch in the end. Once Alex left, and also Alex left, and it showed on the pitch. We had times when we had little bits of winning, but there's nothing been consistent since.
So there was that summer around about that. Was it? I think it might have been 01 or 02 when Van Nistelrooy and Veron came in that same summer.
Yes.
And it was like two. I mean, Veron was one of the biggest stars in the world, and
massive.
But Van Nistelrooy, I mean, I know he didn't actually win that much in that period, but he was unbelievable
He was a brilliant finisher. He was an unbelievable finisher. Veron was just, he was magic. I wish Veron had stayed for 10 years because he was just brilliant to work with. Proper Argentinian lunatic, you know what I mean? But just great fun to have around. And Rude, I don't think I ever saw a better finisher at the club than Rude. His finishing was just phenomenal. He was just so focused on it.
And how did they integrate those two players? You got again two massive stars coming in. Are they straight into it, or do they sort of take a bit of time?
No, I mean, I think that was a good thing about Man United. Not just the players, but the team around the players. So the close net, the masseurs, the rest of the medical team, the kit men. You made everyone feel welcome as quick as you could, so they could be part of it. And I think Sir Alex got that and realised how important that was, and left us just to do that. And that's why he always appreciated us, Sir Alex. And as a team, we always tried our hardest to integrate them as quick as we could and get them part of the setup and basically pander to their every need just so they were happy, But we were good at that as a team. We were very good at that.
Yeah, and then at the same time you had Ronaldo coming in. Oh, he's a bit later, wasn't he, Ronaldo? But was he similar sort of thing?
So Cristiano's, I think his initial problem was he had zero English in him. Zero. Didn't understand a single word. And obviously that's changed over the years, but that was a stumbling block. See, Veron didn't have brilliant English, but a little bit broken, but he got through, But whereas Cristiano, no one could really help. Plus, he was Portuguese, and at the time, the only person that could speak in Portuguese to him would have been Carlos Queiroz, because everyone else is either Spanish speaking, they can sort of get by, or most with English. So he had to get over that stumbling block first, but he was quick. He was quite quick to do that. And once he'd done that, and he was telling everyone he was going to be the best in the world, and then went and proved it, didn't he? Went and proved it.
And then from your role that you go in there, I can imagine if you're doing a massage or so on, doing work with the players, you're going to be with them regularly. You're giving them constant treatments. I'm sure you develop a close rapport with them as well. How do you manage that from you're part of the medical team, but also you're developing probably really strong relationships with the players?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you think about it, in 2000, I was only 23. So we signed in 2001, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and he's like a year older than me, or 2 years older, whatever he was at the time. So you're on the massage bed, you get to know each other, you get talking, you end up on the training pitch, knocking balls about. You have so much in common. You do end up becoming close with people. You do. It's human nature. But then all the time in the back of your mind, you've got the older staff and the older, you shouldn't become friends with the players. Alex doesn't like it, blah, blah, blah. But it's natural that you're gonna there's obviously they want that boundary, but I always thought that being so close to some of them, I'd find out things that they wouldn't know up top, and that could help the setup. Maybe little niggles here or there that the players got they don't want to speak about because you don't want to be dropped and things like that, left off the pitch. And the one thing, great thing about Rob Swire, he always knew that, and he always knew what I brought up to the setup as a head physio, and he just said, just keep doing what you're doing, and he was always very complimentary about it, and I always liked Rob for that. He always said, I know what you've been to the setup, you should just keep doing what you're doing, forget everyone else, forget what they think. So yeah, there was times when I was close with players, and I did go out and have meals and parties with them. And maybe I did cross that line, that so-called line that staff shouldn't mix with players, but I didn't see why not, and it didn't really do me any harm over the years.
And was that something that Rob was as the head of the medical team, if that's what his role was at that time? Is that something that he was pretty much given autonomy over? So if he had your back, you should be pretty much fine.
Yeah. Obviously, you had to toe the line somewhere, and you can't misbehave and definitely not misbehave with players. But he knew how valuable. I will say he knew how valuable I was to the setup. So just let me do what I wanted to do, really.
Yeah, and then you mentioned that you went on to work with England. How did that come about?
Just by chance, David Beckham rings me. I remember it well. I was away on holiday in Malta, and I was actually with Gary Neville, because at the time Gary was dating my sister, and David Beckham rang him and said, put Rod on the phone, and he said, mate, he said, how do you fancy doing the England job? Oh, what do you mean? He went, well, the England masseurs just left because Vialli's took him to Watford as his general manager and we need a masseur. Do you fancy it? And this was literally a year after I'd been at United. So I was like, I'm not going to say no, am I? And that was just, wow. And that was brilliant going away with England. Very, very good.
So what was your first trip away for that?
My first trip was, funnily enough, Holland at White Hart Lane. And we'd just signed Ruud van Nistelrooy. He'd scored in the game. I think they beat us 2-1. I got, from my first game, I got Andy Cole's shirt. The All England squad signed it. And after the game, Ruud van Nistelrooy is shouting into our dressing room, "Where's Rod? Where's Rod?" So he's just scored against the England team. He comes into our dressing room to give me his shirt for that game. And then obviously later on I got him to sign it, United. So yeah, that's my first ever England game. I've got it in a frame somewhere, but I dropped it in transit a few months back and smashed it, so I need to reframe the whole bloody thing again.
Did you get a bit of stick for him coming in and giving you that shirt?
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember, I can't remember. Well, my second game was the Germany 5-1 game. So I was all right then. I was like, once we got that out of the way, I was fine then. Yeah, it was good. But going away with England was a brilliant experience. Going away with United is a fantastic experience. I mean, you go away with United, it's red carpet treatment. But you go away with England, it's another level. Another level.
So what was it like again? And that is probably my favourite England era as well. Around that, like you had that team then.
Well, we should have won. We should have won things. I mean, 2004, we had a player in the squad who at the time was I believe was the best player in the world, because at that time he was 18 years old, completely fearless, didn't have a care in the world about what went on around him, and just wanted to play street football. And he single-handedly beat teams up on his own. Obviously, Wayne Rooney. He breaks his foot. We don't go through to the semi-final or the final. 2006 again, Wayne gets sent off. Don't go through. 2008 we should have qualified, didn't qualify. 2010 we still had a strong team then, and had just a terrible tournament. And they can use any excuse they want. I mean, Capello took a lot of the blame for it, but they just didn't play well enough. Simple as that. But 2004, 2006, I thought we were probably the strongest team in both tournaments.
Yeah, that Germany one was disappointing, wasn't it? With the team that was out there then. So, like again, there's a lot of talk around, and even the players talk about it a lot in terms of like the group of players. Did they fit together, or because they were battling so much in the Premier League? Did that? But was there any sort of not bad atmosphere, but could you sense a different togetherness?
When I first went away with England, I saw something straight away that I thought, oh, that's not quite right. But I was too young and I was never going to comment on it. And it was Gary Neville would have Bex. Bex was now by now the captain of England. He would have Bex. He would have Phil Neville. He'd have Butty. He'd have all the United lads. There'd be 7 or 8. Coley, Teddy. And let's say a mealtime was 1 o'clock. He'd have them there at 10 to 1. So they've ate first and then gone before anyone else gets in there. Gary tried to segregate them from everything else. And I just thought, well, why can't you just mix? Like, because that will create an atmosphere going forward. And I think it did a little for a little bit. But then once Sven left and things changed and Capello came in and everyone ate together and people mix better. But I was good for getting people to mix. And Wayne was fantastic. Wayne could just bounce around a room and just mix everyone together brilliantly and could knit a dressing room. And that's what Wayne did for, well, I mean, I worked with him for 14 years and that's what he did his whole career.
Yeah, so what was it like then? Because I'm an Everton fan, so I remember that vividly in terms of him going over there. But when he came because he came into United right after the 2004, didn't he?
Yeah, he did with his broken foot. I mean, I was. I wonder if I can tell this. I'm going to tell it. I don't care. So I was. If you'd have seen his Rooney film recently, I'm in it all the way through because me and him we're very, very close. We still are now. I was on the phone to him yesterday about they played last night at DC United. Anyway, we were playing a lot of in between massages. We were playing a lot of I think it was Pro Evolution or FIFA or something like that. Down in the during the tournament in Portugal. And he said to me one day, he went, "What do you call your gaffer?" I went, "I call him boss." He went, No, but if you didn't know him, if you didn't work for him, what would you call him? I said, "You call him Sir Alex." I went, "Why?" He went, "Well, he wants to speak to me, but I've got to ring him." I went, "Right, okay, listen." I was saying, "Know what's going on here." I said, "Call him Sir Alex. Just say, 'Hiya, Sir Alex, it's Wayne,' and then get on with your conversation." He went, Right, will do. Anyway, he dials his phone, rings him. And he goes, "Hiya, Alex, it's Wayne." I was like, "What just say, Sir Alex, mate?" Honestly. And he couldn't even do it. And then they had the whatever they talked about, and then 2 months later he'd signed for us. And that was right in the middle of the tournament in 2004, that, yeah.
So was that something that he was doing that was like intentional, that he was trying to sort of be, or was he, did he just like get it wrong?
No, just got it wrong. Just he's not intentional at all. Like he's just strange like that, you know. He's a funny kid. He's a funny kid.
That documentary was class. I've watched it twice now, but because again, it's footballers. They get perceived in different ways all the time. But he came across really, really well. And I'm friends with John Hartley, who's was physio at Derby, and he just can't speak highly enough about how good Rooney was when he was there.
Yeah, I love the guy, John. I went down into Derby, had a chat with John, because Wayne said to me, he said, like, I wasn't doing anything. He said, "What, he's coming in, I'll have a look round, see what it's all about." So I went down and had a chat with John. Nice guy. And yeah, he is perceived so badly. He really is perceived so badly. And he's not helped himself in that, don't get me wrong, over the years, but he's a great lad. He's an absolutely fantastic lad, and I can't sing high praise enough of him. He should be revered in this country for what he did for England, and he's not. He should be revered for what he did for Man United. He is by Man United fans, but he's not as well recognised by the rest of the country for it. And I think it's poor. I think he is the only player of the past 20 years who should have given Rooney and Ronaldo a run for their Messi and Ronaldo a run for their money for Ballon d'Or when they were dominating it, but he didn't. And I'll say it was probably because of his off the field antics. He does like a drink and he does like to enjoy himself. And he was never a gym person and going, getting a 6-pack and all that sort of stuff. He just wanted to play football and then just go home. That's all he ever wanted to do. Have a game of golf, have a pint. He was an old school footballer, really. He wasn't hell bent on doing the finer things to make himself better and better. Which in 2004, we all know he was world class. He was the best player of that tournament. Whereas Ronaldo got to the final and he was revered for it.
Yeah, well, when he was 16, he was just dominating physically and just technically as well. Yeah, he was absolutely remarkable in terms of that. But then when players would come through in general at United, could you tell? I suppose you'd only been at United, but could you see psychologically something that they had, or was it the collective that was more important than?
So the difficult thing with what I was doing was back then as well. Not so, the later stages, I was more on the training pitch every day because I would go out there. I enjoyed going out there. But back then, the early 2000s, I didn't really go out to the training pitch that much. So you couldn't really see the younger kids that were coming through joining in with the first teamers. You didn't see it happen that much. You definitely didn't see them in the dressing room. So you couldn't really get to see how these kids worked and how they spoke, and because you didn't really interact with them that much because they were in a different dressing room and you didn't really see them on the pitch. But towards the last stages, probably 2010 and 11 onwards, I was going out to the training pitch quite often, and you get to talk to them, and you can see which ones they know what they're talking about, and they know what they're doing, and you get to mix with them a little bit, and you do pick up on certain traits in the players that you think, aye, he's got a chance in. I mean, I'll never forget Marcus Rashford under Louis van Gaal. I was stood next to Giggsy. Giggsy was one of his coaches at the time, and I was stood next to Giggsy, and Marcus picked the ball up on the right-hand side and just beat 3 international players, bang, like that, within about 10, 15 yards. And I just looked at Giggsy and went, wow. And he went, "Rod, I know." I said, "Get him in the team, Giggsy." He's like, "I'm pushing for it." And literally, by chance, a week later, he started and got his 2 goals. And then the Arsenal game got his 2 goals then as well.
So is that something like do they have like players like Rashford in the youth thing at United has always been massive, but is there a lot of talk? What point does that normally start? Does it start from like a very young age of like 14, 15, or does it
It
tend
does,
to mirror?
it does start really young. Definitely under Sir Alex, but like Ollie would have known, Louis van Gaal would have known of a 14-year-old or 15-year-old coming through that we need to keep eye on this kid because he's got something. They all know. They all know. The coaches all talk. Like Michael Carrick would have known when he was there as the assistant. Like he would have known of good players coming through. The likes of Elanga now that have come through and players like that, they'd have known about these kids and they're going to have a big chance. And obviously, to mix from youth to men's football is not easy, but some do it better than others. And I know that Giggsy especially was always a fan of like if you're good enough, you're old enough. It's up on the walls at Carrington somewhere. I think Matt Busby saying, but yeah, there was if you've been at the club a while, you wanted to push for those younger players to come through.
Yeah, there was a few like Ravel Morrison and Pogba and so on. Well, they left for different reasons,
Yeah.
I think, but like they were because even like us I was living in Manchester as well at the time, you'd hear the talk about them, but potential issues of like Ravel Morrison or whatever. But
Yeah.
was that something that would they be? With like the medical team and the team thinking, oh yeah, right, these players are going to go in, or would you sort of see maybe other issues as to why that may not happen?
I mean, Ravel was the anomaly because he was just the best player I ever saw at Man United. He was a phenomenal footballer at a young age. Far too intelligent for the rest of the players on the pitch, and it used to frustrate him. But we just had to deal with who came our way as a medical team. You'll get told, okay, there's a 17-year-old kid coming in, that he needs this or whatever, and you just deal with it. It was that simple. Wasn't anything. There wasn't medical team meetings about, oh, we've got this protege coming through, we need to do this. It was just get on with it. Simple as that. So there's nothing special given to him in that sense of the word. But yeah, I mean, I remember coming off I think it was about, I can't remember what year it was, 2003, 4, 5. Rio said to him, Rod, you need to come and see this kid over here. And he was on the reserves. The reserves had a game, and Ravel was playing for him. And he was so small, but just so skillful and so quality. I actually played Ravel 2 weeks ago. I still try and play as much as I can, like 8, 9, 7, 8, 9 aside, whatever, 11 aside. So Ravel played in the game a couple of weeks ago with likes of like Phil Bardsley and Danny Drinkwater played as well. So I can't stay in touch with Ravel. He's just gone out to DC United with Wazza now.
Oh, right, nice. Where's that match then? Where does that happen? Not that I'm going to turn up, but
we play at a place called South Manchester on a Tuesday night. We do a good 9-a-side game. There's some good players in it. Like I say, Phil, Drinky, Eric Peters, who was at Stoke and Burnley. He's playing now in it. I mean, you've had people like Johnny Lescott have played in it. Anua. So some very good. It's a good standard. But I'm 45 tomorrow actually, and it's getting harder and harder. I played an 11-a-side game yesterday, for just an open age Sunday team, and they were all like 20, 18, 19, 20-year-olds with the team, and I bust my hamstring in the first 10 minutes, didn't I? So now I'm out for 2 weeks, killing me. Should have the game in it now. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, you did play at a decent standard as well, didn't you? Whilst you were doing this,
I was. For the first sort of like 10 years under Sir Alex, he allowed me to go and play Saturday football for Altrincham. So I was like conference, relegated a couple of times. So conference north sort of level for a good 8, 9, 10 years. And he allowed that, Sir Alex. So I didn't really travel with the team until about 2000. The occasional Champions League away game, but 2010, 11, I started traveling with the team.
Yeah. And did you feel like you were missing out on that then? Was that something that you felt bad
You know
about?
what? Early doors, they said to me, we want you to start traveling with the team. But I was getting paid quite decent money at United and not United, at Altrincham, and Man U were never prepared to to what's the word? Reimburse me for that if I was to travel. And the other thing was, I know me, I'd have got bored doing the same old routine, traveling to the same old stadium, same old hotel, season in, season out. I'd have got bored doing it, which in fact happened once I started traveling everywhere. By 6 or 7 years of that, I know it was Man United and it was brilliant, but in the end, it's just another bus, another plane, another hotel room, and another stadium. And yet you're going to different countries and you're traveling all over the world, but only really in pre-season do you get time to actually appreciate where you are and what you're doing. Other than that, it's just head down work, head down work, head down work. You know, and we've talked. I've talked about this so much with people after you leave the game. It's like the best way I can describe working in football, especially at that top level, it's like a glorified army, because you're told when to you train every single day, 7 days a week generally. You're told when you can eat. You know, you're told when you got to go to sleep. And you come out of it and you think, oh my God, this is what weekends are. You know, I didn't know we could do this at a weekend. You know, and you just it's like it's weird how the feeling you come out of being working in the game for so many years, and a little bit of regret came in it for me, because as much as I loved it, like I just think I'd rather have my own time than I've done so many years. Yeah, a few years have been good, but so many years. But listen, I loved the majority of my time working for Man United and for England, and I would never change it for the world. Never change it for the world.
Well, that's good if you can feel like you don't miss it, as in you don't miss that whole intensity.
No, I don't. I really don't. I really don't. I tell you, it was difficult. The first sort of year I came out of it was very difficult, because you are institutionalized. You really are, and like you think, oh my God, and you sort of get why footballers come out of football, and there's this massive divorce rate, and there's this huge bankruptcy problem that footballers find themselves in, and you sort of understand it, because you're like, oh, what should we do now? But at least I could carry on doing what I was doing, a little bit privately, just to keep money coming in, you know. But I can understand why footballers have their problems when they leave the game, because you're not out of prison, I say that, but you've institutionalized. This is all you know. 7 days a week of work, 11 months a year, 12 if you're working for your national team as well, and it's just non-stop. All you know is work. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when I was in the United a few times, probably in that era, but going into different clubs, and you would see that the players were always, at United in particular, were very inquisitive about us, the new bit of equipment I'd brought in. I remember Rio coming over and like really grilling me on something. Like he wasn't having it. He wasn't having what I was saying. He was like really putting me under pressure. I remember Phil Neville ripping me when I was at Everton. I went in there and he was like, "Oh, that machine's crap, mate," in front of like the physio there, and I could sort of do, and he was sort of looking like trying to rip me, but you could sort of tell that they were genuinely, again, I think they were sort of almost pleased to see external people as well.
Yeah, no, yeah, so something different happening that's coming into the fishbowl, you know. That's what it was. You're literally in your own bubble with these people that are your world, and you're with these people more than you're with your family. You literally are with these people, and you're traveling all over the world with them. And like I say, especially if like the likes of Rio, Wayne, the English lads, you know, with me, I wasn't just with Man United. Every time we go with England, I'd be with him as well. So I was literally spending in a year of 365 days with Wayne, especially, maybe 330, 340 days with him. You know what I mean? And every single day. And I'd have what a bit of downtime when I'm away with England or we're United, and you get like an hour or two to just go to your room and chill. He'd come knocking on my door and just want to come in my room and sit there, just have enough of me. God damn it, will you? And that's the way it was. You just everything was just so intense, and you just don't stop. You just don't stop working.
And did that ever cause any like friction or fallings out?
There's always little things that went on over the like. nothing ever lasted really, but yeah, they had a little scuffle on the training pitch, or when things weren't quite right off the pitch. No, when things weren't right on the pitch, as in results weren't going away, you get the little moans and little groans and people complaining about stuff. But no, it was never any real serious problems.
And then, so when you were saying you go out on the training pitch, were you getting involved in the training then?
So under Sir Alex, not so much. I joined in a couple of times over the years. With Louis van Gaal, he used to have me setting and doing some of the work around the pitch. But with Jose had had me joining in quite often actually. I'm like, God, we're talking like 5 years ago when I'm still joining in Man United's training sessions, blowing at my backside. But yeah, Jose would have me crossing balls and joining in properly the training sessions. Jose took a shine to me when he first came to the club, and he liked the way I was around the place, and he wanted me on the training pitch every day.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? Then that they've each got a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
Well, did you like have any particular ones that you enjoyed, like being involved in more like regimes?
Well, obviously, I've just mentioned Jose. Then he made me feel brilliant when I worked with him. Listen, he had his problems at Man United, and he made a lot of players feel terrible. But when I worked with him, especially the first year, Jose made me feel on cloud nine. There's no better manager in the world ever than Sir Alex, and he was a brilliant person to work for. But I thoroughly enjoyed working for Jose. Louis van Gaal was a gentleman, an honest man, and he was a human, and he was very nice. He was a very nice guy to work for, stuck in his ways and was hard work at times, but he was a nice guy. And I got on with David Moyes as well. He was a nice fella. He just came in at the wrong time for me. Came in at the wrong time, probably maybe for him as well, with Sir Alex's legacy just behind him. But they were all everyone I worked with were decent people. I enjoyed working for each of them in their own different ways.
And do you think it helped your football career, like being around like, the United players and?
No, not really. Not really. I'd sort of. I think I moved to Altrincham in 2001, and that was a year after I'd been at United. But it had nothing to do with me being at United, just because I'd been scoring a lot of goals for my team that I was playing for, Congleton Town, earlier, and went to Alty and stayed there for the next 8 or 9 years. And that was just because I stayed there on my own merit, and it didn't. Being on the training pitch with them, it wasn't that often in those days. You know, the mid 2000s, it wasn't that often. So no, it didn't really affect it. I knew my own ability on the football pitch. I knew my strengths, I knew my weaknesses, and that's why I played at that level and not really much any higher. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I think the one that had probably the most attention from an England perspective, from my perspective, was the 2006 in Germany. You like with the Baden-Baden, where you were staying over there. Because I went to Germany for that one. We went to Baden-Baden, and we went to what was the Gary Baldy's, I think, was the club that everyone went to there.
But we never left the hotel.
Well, no, that's what I was going to ask you, because we did see some of the stuff, like some of the entourage there and so on. But from you guys, do you know what was going on from inside the camp?
We knew what was going on. Yeah, you couldn't avoid the papers. We knew what was going on, and there was a conversation had amongst the team. Say, come on, and Gary Neville was vehement on it. Like, this can't happen. Like, you've got to tell your wives to calm down here, because this is making us all looking stupid. And then the next day, I mean, God rest his soul, but Gary Neville's dad, Neville was on a table dancing. And he just sat the whole England team down, Gary, and told them, you've got to tell your wives to stop it. Brilliant. Anyway, yeah, we knew what was going on. We knew exactly what was going on. And what Sven did there brilliantly, we were at the top of a mountain where our hotel was, up above Baden-Baden, and the families were all down in Baden-Baden. And what we'd do is the night after every game, we'd bring them all up the mountain into the hotel, and we'd have like a big meal and buffet, and like we'd watch a game together. Obviously, the World Cup's games every single night, and just so the families could be together and the players could see the wives or the kids or whatever. So he'd do that, and he was good at that, Sven, very good at that, because he knew that a lot of players get really, really homesick and miss the kids. So that was good. That was a good aspect of Sven's work. He was a good manager.
Yeah, Sven was a good man manager as well, was he?
Yeah, very good, very good. I think his whole ethos was just make sure the players are happy. That's all he was about. And I think from what I can gather, he's quite like Ancelotti. He's quite similar. Just make sure the players are happy.
Yeah. And then in terms of that, you must have had, like, it's hard to pick any sort of number of great experiences, but are there any ones that particularly stand out as a memorable, whether it was Man U or England?
In what regard?
Just like you just stick out and think, wow, this is like unbelievable, that experience for you.
I mean, yeah, obviously the 2008 Champions League final was an experience. It was an amazing experience. I mean, I got loads. I mean, I was in the dressing room in 2003 when we were playing in Lisbon, and we've watched Ronaldo absolutely tear us apart first half. And the talks start there and then in the dressing room. We're in like a side dressing room off the players' dressing room, and in comes David Gill, in comes some of their people from Sporting Lisbon. So Alex is there, and they're talking. We want this boy. We want to take him. We want him now. Let's do a deal now. This was at half time. And this carried on again after the game. So like that you never forget. Things like that you never forget.
And on that note, then, was he on the radar? Was he like?
I think he was, because I remember that summer there'd been like an under 19s or under 18s, like Euros or something like that. And I'm one of them people. I love my football and watched it. And I remember on the plane over in America. We was on tour in America, and I'd said to Sir Alex one of the days, "Oh, they got two lads at Sporting Lisbon. I hope they play against them because they were brilliant in the summer." And the boss was like, "Oh, what are the names?" And I said, "Oh, one's called Quaresma, and the other one's called Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo." And he was like, "Yeah, we know of the boys, we know of the boys." And that was all he said, really. And then they did what they did. That was it.
I remember that was Ricardo Quaresma, wasn't it? He was
Quaresma, yeah.
He used to sign him on Championship Manager. Remember that one?
Yeah, I did as well. Yeah, all those years ago.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of those ones, and then so in terms of what was that 08 final like then?
08 final. It was wet. It was late. It was just you know what I've always said in football. There's obviously a massive amount of ability for players and work rate, but luck comes into it massively. I say it to Wayne Rooney a lot. I mean, yes, his goal against for Everton against David Seaman, but the luck of that timing to be just 16 years old and do that and break into the Premier League, there's luck involved in that. I'm sorry, but there's luck involved. The overhead kick, it's not come off his foot, it's come off his shin, going in the top corner. There's luck involved in that. But there's a lot of luck in things now. The John Terry slip in that penalty shootout on that night won us that Champions League final. There's no two ways about it. I actually sent John a picture of that trophy that night with me holding it. He never forgot it. He always, because he's about 2 years later, they won the league against us, and he sent me a picture of him holding the trophy. I was like, all right, fair enough. Because we got on dead well, me and John, when we was away with England, got on really well. And Frank as well. We were the three of us we got on dead well.
And those two as characters then, because again, absolutely legendary players. But could you see that they're similar sort of characteristics that you'd see with the other like legendary United players?
Yeah, I could. They were winners. The pair of them were winners. Each different personalities, completely different personalities, the pair of them. But Frank, they both knew what they wanted. They both knew exactly what they wanted. Frank was more ruthless about the way he got it, and it could be quite sharp at times. John was always dead nice, but I probably got on better with Frank than I did get on with John. But like John was just a lovely guy. Frank was a straight to the point talking person, but he was a nice guy, and I got on really well with him. But both good guys, both absolute legends at what they did in their careers.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like some people might be surprised. I'm probably surprised to say about John Terry because he has got this reputation as well, hasn't he? Of maybe not being like a great guy, but he's
Honestly, you meet John Terry, he blows you away. I met someone recently who'd met him for the first time ever, and they were like, "Oh my god, what a nice bloke he is!" Blah blah blah. And he really is. He really is a nice bloke. So endearing. I mean, I've worked with him a couple of times recently on Soccer Aid, in terms of soccer. Not this year, but the 2 years before. Just never changes. Just a lovely bloke.
Yeah,
But
well, that's good
I'll
to
tell you,
hear.
one thing with John Terry does stand out. 2010 World Cup. He had a new pair of boots for every training session in every game, in each half of every game. So the kit room in our training camp in South Africa was just full of John Terry boots. Just John Terry boots everywhere. Brand new pairs for everything.
Why was that?
I don't know. Probably because he could. Yeah.
Yeah, and then in terms of England, then, so any particular ones that stick out for that? I mean, you mentioned the 5-1 earlier on. That must have been.
Yeah, I mean the 5-1 was probably the greatest or the most famous game I was involved with England, because we did. I mean, we had some good wins in World Cups, but the 5-1 was probably the biggest game I was involved with. Yeah.
Was there anything slightly tainted by the fact they were all Liverpool players?
No, it was weird actually because me and Stephen, when I first started, we sort of built up a little rapport. And I remember the day of the game, he said to me, "Oh, Rod, I'm not going to have a sleep this afternoon. Can I come and have a massage with you and have a chat and stuff? We'll have a coffee afterwards." That was the day of the game, and I thought, it's my second game. And this is a Scouser. I'm supposed to hate Manx. Knows I'm at United. And thought, aye, fair play to him. And we did. I gave him a massage, and then we sat and had a drink in the afternoon. I think someone from his family came over to the hotel as well. And then he went and did what he did that night. Scored from about 422 yards, didn't he?
And that was there. I know that there were some kickoffs around who was representing England as well as going back to like your case, Man United. Like Gary Lewin was obviously from Arsenal at the time.
Yeah.
But was that ever? Did you ever sort of bear to hear any sort of resentment or anything like that for you?
No, I didn't. Listen, we wouldn't use the information we got away with England. So Alex would never turn to me and say, "Oh, is he injured or is he fit?" He would never do that. He would never compromise me like that. So Alex said to me when I first got asked to do the England job, he pulled me into his office and he said, "I'm going to allow you to do it, but the second I don't want you to do it, you're stopping doing it." He said, "Just remember that." I was like, "Okay, right, okay." So, and he never stopped me. In the end, it was a club decision back in 2014. They actually said to me, "We feel there's a conflict of interest here. Basically, choose one or the other. Either choose working for England or stay working for us. But you can't do both." And it was they sort of hid behind Louis van Gaal and said, "Louis van Gaal's just done it. He's no longer working for Holland because he's now working for us. You can't do the same thing." And Tony Strudwick had just started working for the national team as well that year, and I think that was a problem to some people. And I think if Tony wouldn't have come to England, I'd have been all right. But then it was only within a year or two after that the FA then turned around and said, "No, we can't have any people working from clubs." And the likes of Mark Sartori at City, he had to leave. I think the only one who sort of stayed on was a guy called Carl Todd, who's the osteopath, and he does work at Chelsea, but I think he works like interim.
I don't know that one.
I didn't even speak to you, Alexa. He wasn't full time at Chelsea, his own practice, and just goes in there and he's brilliant at what he does. By the way, Carl Todd, amazing.
So yeah, no, we've come across him recently actually, but I've never met him. But he's good, as he?
Lovely guy, the biggest genius I've ever come across when it comes to medical stuff. I absolutely swear by him. And if I have any real problems, I would recommend people to him. I for myself, I go to him for advice. I mean, I love Gary Lewin. I worked with Gary Lewin for 14 years there. Now the last 3 years at Soccer Aid as well. And me and Gary always got on brilliantly. And he knows what I was like, and I was a bit of a character around the place, but he loved that and thrived off it. And he just let me get on with doing what I was doing. And Gary to work for, Gary, was amazing.
Yeah, no, great guy. Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely very good guy. So then for like what you're doing now then, is that something that you like, what you any sort of aspirations about what you want to do going forward?
You know what, right? Honestly, and it's taking its time. It's like a 3-year transition period now. I've still not actually decided what I'm doing or what I want to do. I do know in my head that I don't want to massage people until I'm 65, 70. Because Man United were never big payers, and I've never built up the money to just go and like live my life now. So I've got to do something, and that's all I know. But I know I don't want to do that, so I've still got to sort of get my head around what I'm going to do. I went down the agency route a little bit, didn't enjoy doing that for 6 months a year, so I came away from that because it's too cutthroat and too ruthless for my liking. I've got to make some sort of decisions. The good thing I've got is I've got great contacts in the world of football. I'm actually going through a process of doing an NFT project at the moment, using my contacts and some companies over in Dubai and Korea. So hopefully that one comes to fruition. That'd be nice.
Yeah, definitely. So you into crypto yourself then?
Yeah, I am. I got quite heavily into it when I came back from America. Sorry, after United, I went over to work with Dave Hancock in America after United, on his Apollo, what do you call it?
Software.
The software. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. The Apollo software. So I went working with him, but that was an office job, 9 to 5. Not brilliant for me, and I missed home, so I came home.
What was that like going home? Dave's a character himself, isn't he?
Dave is a character. He's hard work to work for, though. Very demanding.
I can imagine.
Oh, very demanding. I remember because I knew Dave because he came into the World Cup setup in 2010, and I remember him vividly saying to me one day, he said, "Oh my God, I could never work with you every single day." He said, "You just drive me bonkers," and I ended up doing that. Well, good guy though. Good guy.
So was that in New York then?
Yeah. So, well, I was based in New York. Well, I was doing 3 days in New York, but at the same time, I'd met a woman in Philadelphia. So I was living out of Philadelphia, but traveling up to New York. So I was staying in Dave's house in New York and then staying in Philadelphia for 4 days. So that was an enjoyable part of my life. Very funny.
What was that like living in America then? Because that is a massive culture shift, isn't it?
Different,
Everyone thinks
yeah,
it's close, but it's not at all, is it?
No, everything's miles away. You can't just go out and dip into the shops because you have to get in a car and drive 35 minutes to get there. And everything's just so open and sparse. Like it is just a massive, massive country. And unless you're on holiday there and you're like loving New York City or you're in LA or Vegas, like it's just, I think it's just too. I mean, there's no pavements. They don't want you to walk anywhere. There's no wonder everyone's dead fat over there. They just want everyone in the cars and just driving around. Crazy.
Yeah. No, look, Rod, I really appreciate you giving up your time today on this, and hope you find what your passion is for your next thing.
Yeah. Listen, life. I've learned you've got to enjoy it. Simple as that. So you've got to follow your heart. You've got to earn your money, but I've just learned that if you're not enjoying something, don't do it. Like just do something else that you will enjoy, and that's the way I'm doing at the moment.
No, definitely a good way to live. But no, again, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it. It's been great.
No problem.
Good man. Thank you.